Look, I'm going to be honest with you right up front, because apparently this is going into some kind of official record, and I feel like honesty is important when you've somehow committed what I'm being told is academic terrorism just by existing. I didn't mean to break anything. I was just hungry, and space stations never have decent signage for the vending machines. How was I supposed to know that the pretty squiggly lines on the wall weren't directions to snacks, but were actually some kind of ancient, unsolvable mystery that's been tormenting an entire civilization for longer than my country has existed? But I'm getting ahead of myself. They want this documented for the historical record and also the therapy bills. So here goes. I was on the Scrax archive station because my travel agent, who I'm never using again by the way, said it would be educational and a unique cultural experience. What she didn't mention was that it would be a floating library run by giant, chitinous scholars who take their jobs way too seriously. Not that there's anything wrong with that. The Scrax are lovely people. Well, lovely isn't the right word. They're very clicky, and their 4 eyes track you in a way that makes you feel like you're being judged for your posture, which is fair because my posture is terrible. I'd been wandering around the station for maybe 20 minutes, taking photos of what I thought were interesting architectural features. Lots of dark, organic-looking walls with these glowing amber symbols everywhere. When I realized I'd skipped lunch and was getting that specific kind of hangry, where you'd eat a protein bar you found at the bottom of your backpack from 3 trips ago. I asked the docking attendant where I could find food, and he just gestured vaguely down a corridor while his mandibles did this nervous clicking thing. I should have realized then that something was off, but I was focused on finding something edible that wouldn't give me weird space stomach. So there I was, walking down this hallway that was definitely giving off employees-only vibes, but didn't have any actual signs saying so, when I noticed the walls were covered in these symbols. They were kind of pretty in that ancient alien hieroglyphics way, all geometric patterns and flowing lines that glowed softly in the dim lighting. I was about to take a photo for my Instagram, because honestly, aesthetic content, when I noticed one section that looked different from the rest. It wasn't just decorative, it was arranged like, okay, this is going to sound weird, but it reminded me of those eye charts at the optometrist's office. You know, where the letters get progressively smaller and you have to pretend you can see the bottom line even though it's clearly just a blur. Except instead of letters, it was these symbols, and they were arranged in this specific pattern that my brain just sort of clicked into place with. Huh, I said out loud, because I talk to myself when I'm alone. Turn left at the nexus point, proceed 0.42 units, snack dispensary located adjacent to the thermal regulation chamber. I frowned at the wall. Who measures distance in 0.42 units? That's so weirdly specific. That's when I heard the sound. You know that noise ceramic makes when it's scraping against metal? That teeth-on-edge screech that makes your spine want to escape your body? Now imagine that noise, but it's coming from a living creature's mandibles, and it's vibrating through the air in a frequency that makes your sinuses ache. I turned around and found myself face to face with 4 eyes, with a Scrax who was staring at me like I'd just announced I was pregnant with the Antichrist. She was about my height, covered in glossy black chitin that had this gorgeous purple iridescent sheen under the lighting. Her 4 eyes, 2 big ones in front, 2 smaller ones on the sides of her head, were all dilated to the point where they looked like dinner plates. Her mandibles were clicking so fast they were practically a blur, and the little pedipalps on her shoulders were twitching like they were trying to escape. She had a data tablet clutched in each of her 2 arms, and I noticed her leg joints were making this soft, chittering sound that reminded me of my anxiety whenever I have to make a phone call. "You," she said, and her voice came out in this weird, harmonic resonance that sounded like someone was playing a cello inside a wine glass. What did you say?" "Oh, sorry." I held up my hands in what I hoped was a universal gesture of, "I'm not a threat, just an idiot. I was just looking for the snack machine. Is this area off limits?" The signs weren't super clear, but to be fair, I can't read most of your language, so... Her mandibles stopped clicking. Completely. Just froze mid-movement, which somehow seemed worse than the clicking. "You can't read our language," she repeated slowly. "Right, yeah. I mean, I took the standard tourist translation course, but it was like a 3-hour video and I mostly watched it at double speed while doing laundry. So I retained maybe 15% of it. Enough to ask where the bathroom is and how to apologize for existing, basically. But you just read the Qatari directive." "The what now?" She gestured at the wall with one of her tablets, and I noticed her hand was shaking. "The symbols. The ancient text. You translated it, out loud, in perfect standard." I looked back at the wall, at the glowing symbols that I'd thought were directions to the snack machine. "Oh, those? I guess. They just kind of made sense. Like when you see those magic eye pictures, and your brain suddenly figures out the dolphin or whatever." "They made sense," she repeated, and her entire body started vibrating in a way that made a low humming sound. "They made sense. The Qatari directive, which has stumped our greatest linguistic minds for 314 years, made sense to you. Is that bad?" "Bad." Her volume increased significantly, and another Skarax appeared from a doorway I hadn't noticed. This one was taller, with darker chitin and more pronounced mandibles. He wore some kind of identification badge on his chest plate. "Indio, what's the emergency? I heard your distress frequency from 2 levels away." So that was her name. Indio. The one who was currently looking at me like I was a bomb that might go off at any second. "Falco," she said, and her mandibles started clicking again in this rapid-fire pattern. "Falco, this human just read the Qatari directive." Falco's 4 eyes swiveled to look at me, then at the wall, then back at me. His pedipalps started twitching. "That's not possible." "I know. The Qatari directive is classified as a Category 5 linguistic impossibility. We have dedicated 17 research teams to it over the last 3 centuries. Professor Thanax spent her entire career on a single symbol cluster and retired having made 0 progress. I know. There are scholars who have gone mad trying to crack even the basic grammatical structure. I know, Falco. They both turned to look at me, and I felt like I should probably say something helpful. Listen, I really don't want to cause any interdimensional incidents here. I was just trying to find food. If I accidentally solved your thing, that's great, I guess. Can someone point me to those snacks or... Indio's mandibles stopped clicking. She looked at Falco. Falco looked at her. Then they both looked at me, and I watched as all 8 of their eyes dilated simultaneously in what I was pretty sure was the alien equivalent of a panic attack. You said it was directions to a snack dispensary, Indio said slowly. Yeah, that's what it says. Turn left, go about, I don't know, maybe 15 feet? You guys have weird units. Snack machine next to the heating thing. The Qatari directive, Falco said, and his voice had gone very quiet, is a sacred text. We believed it contained the fundamental secrets of the universe, the nature of consciousness itself, the key to understanding reality at its most basic level. "Oh," I said. Wow. That seems like a lot of pressure to put on some wall graffiti." "It's not graffiti," Indio snapped, and then she grabbed my arm with one of her hands while still clutching her tablets with the other. Her chitin was surprisingly warm. "Come with me, right now. Both of you." "But the snacks." "We will get you snacks after." She started pulling me down the corridor, with Falco following behind, making these chittering noises that sounded distinctly like swearing. We passed through several security checkpoints that opened automatically. Apparently in her panic, Indio had forgotten to make me sign in, which I'm pretty sure violates at least 18 safety protocols, and into a section of the station that looked significantly more official. The lighting was dimmer here, more amber than white, and the walls were covered in even more symbols. These ones looked older somehow, more faded, with sections that flickered irregularly like the power source was dying. We entered a massive chamber, cathedral-sized, easily, and I had to stop and just stare. The room was filled with holographic displays, each one 50 feet tall at least, showing different arrangements of symbols. There were thousands of them, maybe tens of thousands, all glowing softly in the amber light. Some rotated slowly, others pulsed with different rhythms. At the far end of the chamber was what looked like a shrine, with candles made of some kind of bioluminescent material, and what I'm pretty sure were offerings. "Welcome," Indio said, and her voice had gone very quiet, "to the Hall of Untranslated Mysteries." I looked around at the displays, at the decades or maybe centuries of work represented in this room, at the careful cataloging and analysis that had clearly gone into preserving these texts. "So," I said, "funny story. That one over there?" I pointed at the nearest display. "That's a furniture assembly manual for a chair. A really complicated chair with like extra joints, but definitely a chair." Indio's entire body went rigid. Falco made a sound like a tea kettle having an existential crisis. "And that one," I continued, "because apparently I can't read a room even when the room is full of increasingly distressed alien scholars, is an expired coupon for, I want to say, bulk reagent purchase? 20% off if you buy before the 3rd lunar cycle, which I'm guessing you missed by about 1,000 years, so that's unfortunate." Indio sat down, just dropped straight onto the floor, her legs folding under her in a way that looked uncomfortable. She set down both tablets very carefully and put her head in her hands. Falco's mandibles were clicking so fast, they'd become a solid drone of noise. "This is impossible," he said. "This is completely, physically, fundamentally impossible. Unless..." He turned to look at me with all 4 eyes. "How many humans know how to read the ancient texts?" I shrugged. "I mean, I don't. They make sense. Like pattern recognition, you know. My brain just sort of fills in the gaps." That's not an answer to my question. "I have no idea. I've never met another human who's tried to read ancient alien symbols. It doesn't really come up in conversation." Indio looked up from her hands. Her chitin had darkened noticeably, which I was pretty sure meant something bad in terms of emotional state. "We need to test this," she said. "We need to test this right now." And that's how I ended up accidentally destroying 3 centuries of scholarly work before I even got lunch. Indio hauled me out of the Hall of Untranslated Mysteries with the kind of manic energy usually reserved for people who've had way too much caffeine or are experiencing a full psychological break. I was leaning toward the ladder. Falco followed behind us, his chittering having evolved into what sounded like a very detailed list of reasons why the universe was fundamentally broken and possibly owed him a refund. "Where are we going?" I asked as we speed-walked through another corridor. "To find more humans," Indio said, her mandibles clicking in a staccato rhythm that I was starting to recognize as her processing existential horror pattern. "We need to determine if this is a species-wide ability or if you're somehow uniquely catastrophic. I feel like that's an unfair characterization of my personality. You destroyed Professor Thanax's life's work in 4 seconds by calling it a furniture manual. To be fair, it was a furniture manual." We arrived at the station cargo bay, which was basically a huge warehouse filled with shipping containers and the kind of industrial equipment that looks dangerous if you think about it too hard. There were a handful of humans scattered around, a cargo worker using some kind of anti-grav dolly, a maintenance tech up on a ladder doing something to the overhead lighting, and what looked like a tourist family studying a station map with the confused expression of people who had made several wrong turns. Indio marched straight up to the cargo worker, a guy in coveralls who had the tired expression of someone working a double shift. "You, human, I need you to read something." He blinked at her. Sure. Is this like a survey thing, or?" She shoved her data tablet in his face, displaying a symbol sequence that I recognized from one of the hall displays. "What does this say?" The cargo worker squinted at it. "Wait time for thermal paste shipment, 6 to 8 standard cycles. Please allow additional processing for customs verification." He looked at Indio. "Why is this written in that fancy old-timey style? Seems like overkill for a shipping notification." Indio's legs started making that chittering sound again. Falco, who had caught up to us, sat down heavily on a nearby crate. "That," he said quietly, "is the Scroll of Infinite Patience. We named it that because we believed it would take infinite patience to decode. Scholars have dedicated lifetimes to the first 3 symbols alone." "Oh." The cargo worker handed back the tablet. "Well, it's mostly just bureaucratic stuff about waiting for packages. Pretty boring, honestly." Indio turned to the maintenance tech on the ladder. "You! Down here! Now!" The tech climbed down, looking alarmed. "Did I do something wrong? Because the lighting system was already broken when I got here, I didn't..." "Read this." Indio pulled up another display. The tech looked at it for maybe 2 seconds. "Bathroom's broken. Use the one on level 3 instead. Management apologizes for the inconvenience." She paused. "Huh. Didn't know you guys had ancient graffiti about plumbing problems. That's kind of relatable, actually." "That is the testament of flowing waters," Falco said, and his voice had gone completely flat. "We theorized it was a philosophical meditation on the nature of time and change. 17 doctoral dissertations have been written analyzing its potential cosmological implications. It's definitely about a broken toilet," the tech said helpfully. Indio made a sound that I'm pretty sure was the Skirax equivalent of a kettle screaming. She practically ran over to the tourist family, who watched her approach with increasing concern. "All of you, every single one of you, read these." She started pulling up displays on her tablet, flipping through them frantically. The dad went first. Okay. This one says the cafeteria special on 4th day is fungal protein loaf, but it's probably expired by now, so stick with the pre-packaged stuff. Safety reminder to keep all appendages inside the transport pod during operation," the mom read. "This one's an Aki advertisement for premium meditation crystals," their teenage kid added. 20% off for first-time buyers." Wow, they really wanted to move those crystals. Indio sat down on the floor again. Just dropped like someone had cut her power cable. Her mandibles had stopped clicking entirely, and her chitin had gone so dark it was almost navy blue. The pedipalps on her shoulders hung limp. Falco stood up from his crate, walked over to a wall panel, and just pressed his forehead against it. His entire body was vibrating with that low humming sound. 314 years, he said to the wall. 314 years of research, countless scholars, entire careers, intergenerational projects passed down from mentor to student, and it's all bathroom signs, expired coupons, furniture manuals, and lunch specials, I added, trying to be helpful. Don't forget the lunch specials. How? Indio said from the floor, her voice barely audible. How is this possible? What evolutionary advantage does this provide? Why would humans develop the ability to instinctively read a writing system that isn't even from your planet, that predates your species by millions of years, that requires no study or training or... She looked up at me with all four eyes. Do you even know you're doing it? I shrugged. I mean, not really. It's like, you know when you see one of those ambiguous images, like the duck rabbit thing, and your brain just sort of picks one and runs with it? It's like that. The symbols just resolve into meaning. Pattern recognition. Pattern recognition, Falco said to the wall. Pattern recognition. The most sophisticated linguistic encoding system ever discovered, created by the Qatari civilization at the height of their golden age, incorporating multidimensional symbolic relationships and nested contextual frameworks that operate on 12 distinct levels of semantic abstraction, and humans just pattern recognize it. Human brains are really good at pattern recognition, the maintenance tech offered. We see faces in toast. It's kind of our thing. This is not the same as seeing faces in toast, Falco snapped, turning away from the wall. I don't know, man. It feels pretty similar from my end, I said. Indio pulled herself up from the floor with visible effort. We need to document this. We need to bring you to the central documentation chamber. The academic community needs to know. The entire galaxy needs to know that humanity has somehow evolved to read ancient Qatari simply by existing. Can we get those snacks first? I asked. I've been helpful. I feel like I've earned snacks. 20 minutes later, I was sitting in the central documentation chamber with a protein bar, finally, while Indio and Falco set up recording equipment. The chamber was smaller than the hall, but significantly more bureaucratic, with filing systems built into the walls and that specific lighting that screams, "Government office." For the record, Indio said, her mandibles clicking in a slow, defeated rhythm. Can you explain how you read the symbols? I chewed my protein bar and thought about it. Okay, so like, you know how sometimes you're trying to remember a word and you can't think of it, but you know the shape of it? Like you know it starts with a certain letter and has a certain vibe? It's like that, except the symbols just sort of suggest their own meaning. Like that one over there. I pointed at a symbol on a nearby filing cabinet. That's obviously organized by thermal sensitivity because of the way the curves nest inside each other. And that one means check expiration dates, because the pattern repeats with that little decline at the end, which implies degradation over time. None of that is how the language actually works, Falco said quietly. But I'm right, aren't I? Yes, you're completely right. That's exactly what they say. He sat down at one of the documentation stations. You're right, using a system of interpretation that has no logical basis in the actual structure of the language. You're wrong in every possible way, except for arriving at the correct answer. Sounds like my entire approach to math homework in high school, I said. Indio pulled up a display on the main screen. We have 73,000 untranslated texts in our archives. Most are fragments. Some are complete documents we've simply never been able to decode. Using conventional analysis methods, we estimated it would take approximately 4,000 more years to translate everything, assuming we make standard progress. Okay, I said. How long would it take you? I looked at the screen, at the thousands of documents queued up in neat little digital rows. I mean, I can't read super fast, and I'd need bathroom breaks and meals, probably some snacks. So, I don't know, a few hours? Both of their pedipalps started twitching frantically. A few hours, Indio repeated. Maybe 8 if some of them are really long. I'm a tourist, not a professional translator. I didn't budget time for this. Falco stood up, walked to a cabinet, pulled out a bottle of something that glowed faintly, and took a long drink straight from the container. Do it, he said. Translate everything. Destroy what's left of our academic legacy. At this point, I need to know. I need to know exactly how thoroughly our civilization has wasted 3 centuries. So I did. Turns out, the ancient Qatari civilization was incredibly bureaucratic and really into documenting mundane stuff. Shopping lists, maintenance schedules, passive-aggressive notes about people not cleaning up after themselves in shared spaces. Instruction manuals for devices that had been obsolete for millennia. One extremely long document that was just someone complaining about their neighbor's noise levels in what I'm pretty sure was the ancient alien equivalent of a next-door post. When I finished, 43 minutes later, Indio was back on the floor and Falco had emptied the bottle. The secret to the universe, Indio said to the ceiling, is that someone named Kutox was really annoyed about footstep volume. Don't forget the 17-page essay about proper recycling protocols, I added. I'm transferring to a different field, Falco announced. Astrophysics, maybe, or waste management. Anything where humans can't accidentally demolish centuries of work by casually existing near it. I finished my protein bar and checked my phone. Hey, so this has been fascinating and slightly horrifying, but I have a tour scheduled in an hour. Do you guys validate parking, or? Indio gave me a look with all 4 eyes that somehow conveyed that if looks could kill, I'd be vaporized. There's no gift shop, is there? I asked. Get out, they both said in perfect unison. I left a 5-star review anyway. The protein bars were pretty good,